What is going on, everyone? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to raise ducks, so let's hop into it, everyone. So in this first part of the video, we are going to be talking about what stuff you need to get, because that's what I started out with my How to Raise Chickens the Complete Guide. So what are you going to need to be able to raise ducks, just like mine? So let's start with that. So the first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a brooder, obviously. Now, if you've already raised chickens, you can just set this brooder back up again. Now, as for stuff to cover the bottom, for chickens, usually you would only use shavings. But for ducks, you have more than one option now. You have to choose between shavings or straw. The reason I put straw in this video is because of what we'll talk about later, and I'll get into that soon. But here's the beginner's guide to brooding your ducks in the brooder. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure that your ducks obviously have plenty of food and water. And by plenty, I mean a lot, because ducks love water, and that is something to keep in mind. Also, when you're setting up the water in your duck coop, your duck brooder, God, I can't talk. You're going to need a paint can and then a metal thing to put on top of that. Now, if you ever paint walls and you know that paint roller thing, you need to put it in the bucket so that way you can do another side of your wall. That's what you also need for ducks, that way because they will play in their water. I know it sounds disgusting, but they do play in their water. So that might make it a little bit easier for you. So that way you might only have to clean every other day instead of every day. The straw might also help with that too. As for feed, ducks, you're going to start out with their first 5 to 10 months on duck beginners pellets, or I don't remember what that stuff is called. And then once they're about, like, I want to say about 8 or 9 months old, going to switch over to two things. You could A, switch over to duck feed, or you can save a lot of money and time by putting them with your chickens and then switching them right over to egg layer pellets. I know it sounds hard, but they can have that because our ducks have it. Your chickens can also have the duck feed, but I recommend you only serve them to that as a treat because they do treat it like one. Now you see, as ducks get older, they want to swim. And I know that's why they play in their water, because they want to swim in it, but it's too little, so they just splash around in it a little bit. So once they're about 4 to 6 weeks old, this is when you're going to want to bring them outside. I know, it sounds like it's bad for them, but they're actually going to do that. You want to fill up a small swimming pool, maybe even a kiddie pool, with this water. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to water once you filled it up, and then you're just going to put it in there. But you're going to need to dry off your duck because their glands, or whatever the hell it's called, is not fully developed yet. So you're going to need to help them dry off so that way they can explore around. Make sure you're scavenging what's good and what's bad for your ducks, because that will definitely help them out with their stuff. Because they're not as smart as chickens, believe me. I've had to deal with ducks. Another recommendation of mine is that you get them a little bit earlier in the season, so like April, May. So I'm going to start like 4 to 8 weeks old. You can bring them outside because you need to decrease the temperature of the brooder by 1 degree every day, or 7 degrees every week. So that way, once it's comfortable outside, you can move them out. Now, when you move your ducks outside, usually it should be the temperature that their brooder is currently set to. So 7 degrees down every week. So it should be set to, I want to say, how many ever degrees it is currently outside. God, I can't talk right now. So once you're done with that, now it's time to build your duck coop. Now take how many ducks you have. Each of them get 2 to 3 square feet of space each. And then once you put that into perspective, now it's time to actually start, building the coop. If you have a small amount of ducks, like 2 to 4 ducks, chances are you're going to only have I want to say a really small duck coop that might only take you a week or 2 to build. We got, I want to say, about 75% of our duck coop done in the first day we were building it. And we didn't even have to build this thing out down at the driveway. We literally just built this thing right in the dog yard. That's how quick that thing took to build and how small it was. And then we moved the ducks outside sometime in November. So we got our ducks in August. It takes a little bit of time sometimes, especially when the temperatures are constantly fluctuating, because 2020 was a weird year here. We had our first snow of the season on October 30th, our lowest temperature the day after, and then our highest temperature in November 2 days later. That's just how constantly the temperatures are fluctuating. So we weren't able to move them out until it was actually average here in like November. It's like, what, like 48 degrees for our average high here. It was absolutely terrible, but guess who cares? Not me. Because we finally managed to move them outside. Now let's talk about recommended breeds. So let's talk about some recommended breeds. I know I should have put this earlier in the video, but you know what? Viewer retention, because this is one of the biggest things. So, what is the breed that you want? I can't talk because it's way too hot out right now. It's like 94. So, one of the breeds I'd recommend, like if you really want like tame ducks that you just want to be around the family a lot, that don't lay that many eggs, you want the Rowan. According to Google, they lay like 30 eggs a year. But for me, they've laid around 150, so not everything from Google is right. Sometimes Google completely bullshits you. And that's one of the good examples right there. But if you really want like production ducks, then the Cayugas are for you. The Cayugas, they're sort of easy to tame, but they are still very loud sometimes. But the Rowan, they always quack, you know, to keep you entertained. Those are the only ducks I've ever had experience with, but if you know any other ducks that you might recommend to beginners, tell me in the comments below. Because I'm thinking about getting some runner ducks for 10,000 subscribers. Because runner ducks, I've seen a lot of videos about them, and I'm hoping to get them soon, because runner ducks look like a different, different species, honestly. Now, if there is one more tip I could possibly give you for raising ducks, it would be to be patient. Because raising ducks, it's not actually as easy as it seems. I know. Ducks, they seem really easy to care for at the top of it.
Not the cap.
But daily cleaning, if you use shavings, and a lot of other stuff, that just really does take a toll on your mental health. So one of my recommendations for this is that once they're like, I want to say about half a year old, or like 3/4 of a year old, so it's like if you get them like August, maybe like March or April, a good recommendation of mine is to remove all the food and the water from their coop. I know it sounds very bad, but on the top of things, yeah, that's kind of bad, but on the bottom of things, that's actually really good. They don't really care that much, and they don't make as much as a mess in your chicken coop. That's just one of my recommendations. You can come up with your own unique way of keeping your duck coop clean. Now we only have to clean our duck coop once a week. That's it. So as often as our chicken coops, and you can apply this to any breed of poultry, albeit quail, chickens, geese, ducks, anything. Any breed of poultry, you can apply that tip to. Those were just a couple tips and tricks that I had to offer for you to raise ducks. Please subscribe. My 200 subscribers special, I just began working on it. I'm hoping it'll come out sometime around August 15th, so hopefully I don't have 300 by then. Let's end that video now. Goodbye, everyone.